Captain Ilara Chen's boots clicked rhythmically against the polished obsidian floor of the bridge as she completed her 20th lap around the command center. The UES Thunderchild hummed around her, its experimental engines pushing humanity further from Earth than any military vessel had ventured before. Through the sweeping quantum blast viewport, stars streaked by in ribbons of light, a dazzling reminder of just how far they'd come. "Status report, Commander Rivera," Chen called, pausing at the tactical station. Rivera, a veteran of the Mars conflict whose face bore the characteristic radiation scarring of that brutal campaign, looked up from his console. "All systems nominal, Captain. The new Hawking drive is performing beyond expectations. We're currently 16 light-years from Sol and accelerating." Chen nodded, allowing herself a small smile. The Thunderchild represented humanity's greatest technological achievement, and its most desperate gamble. After decades of detecting strange transmissions from deep space, Earth's unified government had poured resources into creating a vessel that could serve as both explorer and defender. Most dismissed the project as paranoia. Chen knew better. "Dr. Rahman, how are the weapons systems functioning?" she asked, turning toward the engineering station. Tariq Rahman, the brilliant physicist whose theories had made the ship's exotic armaments possible, didn't look up from his displays. His fingers danced across holographic interfaces as he monitored energy flows that no human had ever controlled before. "The gravitational distortion array is stable, Captain. The quantum disruption cannons are charged and ready. The Singularity Forge," he hesitated, his dark eyes finally meeting hers, "is as ready as an untested doomsday device can be." Chen understood his reservation. The Forge represented the ultimate fail-safe, a weapon system that, theoretically, could create a temporary microsingularity. The military had insisted on its inclusion. Rahman had built it while praying it would never be used. "Let's hope none of it becomes necessary," Chen replied softly. "This is a mission of exploration, after all." The bridge crew exchanged knowing glances. Everyone aboard understood the Thunderchild's dual purpose. First contact protocol was primary, but the vessel's weapon systems told a different story about humanity's expectations for that encounter. Lieutenant Ling suddenly stiffened at the communication station, her hand flying to the neural interface at her temple. "Captain, massive energy signatures detected at grid coordinates 227 Mark 43. Chen was at her side in 3 strides. "Show me." The main display shifted, revealing what at first appeared to be a dense star cluster. As the ship's sensors refined their readings, the image resolved into something that sent ice through Chen's veins. Ships. Hundreds of them. Thousands. "Distance," she demanded, her voice steady despite the adrenaline flooding her system. 3 light hours and closing fast, Captain," Tactical Officer Rice reported. "Formation suggests organized fleet movement. Nothing natural about it." "Are they heading toward Earth?" Chen asked, already knowing the answer. Rice nodded grimly. "Trajectory analysis confirms it. At their current speed, they'll reach Sol system in approximately 72 hours. Chen straightened, feeling the weight of humanity's future settle across her shoulders. In all the simulations, all the training exercises, human strategists had never contemplated encountering an alien armada of this size. The Thunderchild, for all its advanced technology, was just one ship. "Sound General Quarters," she ordered, her voice carrying across the suddenly silent bridge. "Bring all weapons systems online." As alarm klaxons echoed through the ship's corridors, Chen settled into the command chair, fingers instinctively finding the biometric sensors embedded in its arms. The ship's systems merged with her enhanced neural implants, creating the intimate connection between captain and vessel that made the Thunderchild more than the sum of its parts. "Helm, plot intercept course," she commanded, feeling the ship respond to her thoughts, almost before the words left her mouth. "Let's see who our visitors are before they reach home." The mighty engines surged as the Thunderchild altered course, accelerating toward the unknown fleet. On the tactical display, the alien armada continued its implacable advance, utterly unaware that humanity's first and only warship was rising to meet them, like a lone sentinel standing before an oncoming storm. Admiral Scal Fox lounged in his command throne, the living metal conforming perfectly to his elongated spine. 6 eyes blinked in sequence as he observed the tactical hologram hovering before him. The massive hegemony fleet, over 2,000 vessels strong, moved in perfect synchronicity, a testament to Xorian discipline and technological superiority. Admiral, Sub-Commander Vexmore approached, her ceremonial armor clicking with each step. Our forward scouts have detected an anomalous vessel approaching from the target system. Scal Fox's upper lip curled, revealing serrated teeth. Show me. The hologram shifted, focusing on a single ship moving toward them at impressive speed. Its design was unlike anything in the hegemony database, sleek, almost predatory, with hull configurations that suggested advanced propulsion systems. Curious, the Admiral mused, leaning forward. The intelligence reports indicated the indigenous species of the target system had achieved only rudimentary space travel. Perhaps they acquired technology from another civilization, Vexmore suggested. Scal Fox dismissed the notion with a flick of his taloned hand. Irrelevant. One vessel poses no threat to our armada. Prepare the standard subjugation announcement. Aboard the Thunderchild, Captain Chen watched as the alien fleet resolved on the main view screen. The vessels varied in size and configuration, but all shared a distinctive architecture. Angular, obsidian-like hulls adorned with what appeared to be trophies or markers. They're beautiful, breathed Lieutenant Ling. And terrifying. Captain, Rivera called from Tactical. The largest vessel is powering up communication systems. They're broadcasting. Chen straightened her uniform. This is it, people. First contact protocol. Let's show them humanity's best face. She nodded to Ling. Put it through. The view screen shifted, and collective gasps echoed across the bridge. The alien commander resembled nothing from Earth's evolutionary tree, a reptilian insectoid hybrid with multiple eyes arranged asymmetrically across a chitinous face. Ornate armor encased its torso, decorated with what disturbingly appeared to be bones from various species. Indigenous life forms. The translation matrix converted the clicking, hissing language into English. I am Admiral Scal Fox of the Xorian hegemony. Your system has been selected for incorporation into our expanding empire. Resistance is unnecessary and wasteful. Submit, and a portion of your population will be preserved as a servant class. Silence fell across the bridge. Chen's knuckles whitened as she gripped the arms of her command chair. Open a channel, she ordered, her voice steady. This is Captain Ilara Chen of the United Earth ship Thunderchild. We greet you in peace and wish to establish diplomatic relations between our peoples. The Earth is not open to conquest or incorporation into any empire. I suggest we meet to discuss mutual recognition and cooperation. The alien commander made a sound that the translation matrix interpreted as laughter. Diplomacy is the plea of the weak, Captain Chen. Your single vessel, while intriguing, cannot stand against the might of the hegemony. To demonstrate our seriousness. The alien gestured, and on a secondary screen, the crew watched in horror as energy weapons from a distant Xorian vessel lanced out toward a small research outpost orbiting a planetoid at the edge of the solar system. Outpost Galileo. Rides exclaimed. 15 researchers and support staff. They watched helplessly as the outpost erupted in a silent explosion, debris scattering into the void. That was uninhabited by your standards, Admiral Scal Fox continued, satisfaction evident in his tone. A minor demonstration. Your next option is simple. Retreat to your homeworld and prepare your leaders for our arrival, or be destroyed where you stand. Chen rose slowly from her chair, her expression transforming from diplomatic restraint to cold fury. Admiral, she said quietly, you've made a fundamental error in judgment. That outpost may have been small, but it was staffed by Earth citizens, people under my protection. She turned to Tactical. Mr. Reyes, target their smallest support vessel with the gravitational distortion cannon. Minimal yield. Captain, Raman cautioned from engineering. The weapon is untested in actual combat conditions. Chen's gaze never left the alien commander's face. Then this will be an excellent field test. Doctor, fire when ready. Targeting solution acquired, Reyes announced, his fingers dancing across the tactical interface. Gravitational distortion cannon locked on smallest Saurian support vessel. The bridge crew held their collective breath. None of them, not even Dr. Raman, who had designed the weapon, knew exactly what would happen when they fired it at another ship. The technology had been tested on asteroids and remote probes, but never against the complex shielding systems of an advanced alien vessel. Execute, Chen commanded, her voice steel. A subtle vibration ran through the deck plates as the weapon powered up. There was no dramatic beam of light, no visible projectile, just a barely perceptible distortion in space, like heat waves rising from hot asphalt. On the main view screen, Admiral Scalfox was still speaking, his translator conveying something about the natural order of advanced species subjugating the primitive. His words cut off abruptly as his six eyes widened in what was unmistakably shock. What happened next occurred so quickly that several crew members missed it. The targeted Saurian vessel, a sleek, predatory craft, approximately one-third the size of the Thunderchild, seemed to stretch like taffy. Its hull compressed inward from all directions simultaneously before collapsing into itself with catastrophic force. But the effect didn't stop there. The distortion continued along a perfect line, catching two nearby Saurian battlecruisers in its path. Their shields flared brilliant purple for a millisecond before failing completely, the massive vessels crumpling like aluminum cans in a giant's fist. Where three Saurian warships had been, there was now only expanding debris and a lingering spatial distortion that slowly normalized. Silence gripped the Thunderchild's bridge. "My God," whispered Commander Rivera. "What did we just do?" Dr. Raman stared at his readings in disbelief. The distortion cascade exceeded theoretical parameters by 327%. It created a localized gravity well measuring over 300,000 Gs. He looked up, face pale. "Captain, we just turned their own mass against them. The ships were crushed by their own weight." Chen hadn't expected this level of destructive power. She'd intended a measured demonstration, enough to show they weren't defenseless, but not wholesale destruction. Her jaw tightened as she returned her attention to the still open communication channel. The Korean Admiral's command center was in chaos. Subordinates rushed back and forth. Alarm signals pulsed across control surfaces, and Scalfox himself had risen from his throne. Mandibles flared in what Chen interpreted as rage or possibly fear. "Impossible." The translation came through. The alien's voice modulated higher than before. "No species at your development stage possesses such technology." Chen leaned forward slightly. "Admiral, I suggest you reconsider your approach. What you just witnessed was our smallest weapon system at minimal power. We deplore violence, but we will defend ourselves. Return to your territory, and we can establish peaceful relations at a later date." On screen, Admiral Scalfox's posture shifted. For a moment, Chen thought diplomacy might prevail. Then the alien's secondary arms extended from beneath his ceremonial armor, reaching for control interfaces. "Tactical analysis complete," he hissed. "Your weapon, while impressive, requires substantial energy and has a significant recharge cycle. Your ship possesses formidable technology that will serve the hegemony well once captured." The Admiral's upper eyes fixed directly on Chen. "All vessels converge on the human ship. Priority protocol. Disable but preserve core systems. I want that vessel intact enough to study." His mandibles clicked in what might have been anticipation. "Their weapons will become our weapons." As the transmission cut, tactical displays lit up with warning indicators as hundreds of Saurian vessels altered course, moving to surround the Thunderchild. "They're deploying in a sphere formation," Reyes reported. multiple weapons signatures powering up. They're coordinating fire solutions from all angles. Chen settled back into her command chair, hands calm on the armrests despite the gravity of their situation. "So much for diplomacy," she said quietly. "Helm, prepare for evasive pattern delta. Dr. Raman, how long until the gravitational cannon recharges?" Raman shook his head. 30 minutes at minimum. The power requirements air. "Then we'll have to rely on conventional defenses for now," Chen interrupted. "All hands, brace for impact. Let's show these Exorians that humanity doesn't go down without a fight." The first Saurian energy barrage hit the Thunderchild like a tsunami. The ship bucked violently, artificial gravity fluctuating as shield harmonics struggled to compensate for weapons unlike anything they were designed to withstand. "Shields at 73% and falling," Rivera reported, gripping his console as another impact rocked the bridge. "They're using some kind of phased plasma technology that's partially bypassing our defensive matrix." Captain Chen accessed the tactical overlay through her neural interface. The Exorian vessels were arranged in a perfect three-dimensional sphere around the Thunderchild, methodically firing in sequences that prevented their shields from fully regenerating between impacts. "Their attack pattern is too coordinated," Chen observed. "Too perfect." Lieutenant Ling looked up from communications. "Captain, I'm detecting enormous data transfers between Xorian vessels. Their entire fleet appears to operate on a shared tactical network." A plan began forming in Chen's mind. "Mr. Raman, what's the status of ATENA?" "The AI is fully operational and analyzing Xorian communications," Raman replied from engineering, his voice nearly drowned out by the sound of emergency systems blaring in the background. "But we haven't given it access to offensive systems yet." "Authorize full integration," Chen ordered. "Priority 1. Find weaknesses in their coordination protocols." Another impact sent sparks cascading from an overhead conduit. The bridge lights flickered momentarily before emergency power stabilized the systems. "Shields at 58%, Rivera updated. "We can't maintain this position, Captain." Chen nodded decisively. "We need to buy time." "Lieutenant Parker, set course for Jupiter. Execute slingshot maneuver on my mark." The helmsman's eyes widened. "Captain, that's never been attempted at combat speed." "Then we'll be making history today," Chen replied, her calm voice belying the desperate gamble she was taking. "Execute." The Thunderchild's engines roared to life, the experimental Hawking drive channeling energy in ways that defied conventional physics. The ship accelerated at a rate that would have crushed an unprotected human crew, heading directly toward the gas giant that dominated the outer solar system. Behind them, the Xorian fleet adjusted course in perfect formation, maintaining their firing pattern despite the Thunderchild's radical maneuver. "They're still hitting us," Rice called out. "Shields at 42%. "Hold course," Chen commanded, watching the massive form of Jupiter growing rapidly on the view screen. "Prepare for gravitational assist in 3, 2, 1. The Thunderchild skimmed the upper atmosphere of the gas giant, its shields glowing cherry red from the friction. Using Jupiter's immense gravitational field, the ship whipped around the planet at a speed that momentarily confused Xorian targeting systems. As they emerged from the maneuver, Chen gave her next order. "Full power to engines. Take us deeper into the solar system." As the ship accelerated away, the Xorian fleet struggled to adjust their perfect formation, ships jostling for position as they attempted to maintain their coordinated attack pattern. "It worked," Rivera said with surprise in his voice. "Their formation is compromised. Attack efficiency down 30%. Chen allowed herself a small smile. "They might have numbers, but they lack adaptability. Keep analyzing their communication protocols, Lieutenant Ling. I want to know everything about how they coordinate." Ling worked feverishly at her station, neural interface glowing as she processed massive data streams with ATENA's assistance. "Captain, I'm detecting something significant," she announced after several tense minutes. "Their shield modulations follow predictable mathematical sequences. There's a pattern, a vulnerability we might exploit. As the Thunderchild raced deeper into the solar system with the Xorian Armada in pursuit, the ship's communications array captured an incoming transmission from Earth. General Okafor's weathered face appeared on a secondary screen. "Captain Chen, we've received your battle telemetry," the general said, her expression grim. "United Earth Defense is mobilizing everything we have, but you need to understand the situation. We have no other vessels with your capabilities. If the Thunderchild fails—" She paused, the weight of her next words evident in her expression. "There is no backup plan. All of humanity's hopes rest with your ship and crew." Chen acknowledged the transmission with a solemn nod before turning to her officers. The responsibility was crushing. But in that moment, a new resolve hardened in her eyes. "Dr. Rahman," she called to engineering, "how quickly can we implement Ghost Protocol?" "Ghost Protocol is our final contingency," Dr. Rahman explained, his voice hushed even though the entire bridge crew had the necessary clearance. "We simulate catastrophic damage and power loss, while actually reconfiguring our quantum core to mask its energy signature." Captain Chen nodded. "And while the Xorians think we're crippled, ATGNA continues analyzing their systems," Rahman finished. "It's risky, Captain. We'll be vulnerable during the transition." Chen surveyed her bridge crew, seeing exhaustion, but also determination in their eyes. After 12 hours of hit-and-run engagements across the solar system, the Thunderchild had bloodied the Xorian fleet, but shields were now below 30%. They needed a game-changer. "All hands, this is the captain." Chen's voice echoed through the ship's compartments. "Prepare to execute Ghost Protocol. This is not a drill." Throughout the vessel, crew members exchanged solemn glances. They had trained for this maneuver, but never expected to implement it against an actual alien armada. "Lieutenant Parker, take us into Saturn's rings," Chen ordered. "The ice particles should provide additional sensor interference." The Thunderchild glided into the majestic ring system, ice and dust particles pinging against the weakened shields. Behind them, the pursuing Xorian vessels adjusted course, their formation more ragged now after hours of continuous combat. "They're still tracking us," Rise reported from Tactical. "But their sensor readings are degrading. It's now or never, Captain." Chen took a deep breath. "Initiate Ghost Protocol on my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." Precisely placed explosive charges detonated across the Thunderchild's hull, creating a spectacular but carefully controlled series of breaches. Emergency bulkheads sealed automatically as atmospheric venting created a debris cloud around the ship. Simultaneously, Rahman's engineering team executed a masterful power-down sequence, reducing the vessel's energy signature to almost nothing. On the bridge, emergency lighting cast eerie red shadows across the crew's faces as primary systems went offline. Life support reduced to minimal levels, the temperature quickly dropping as heat generation was curtailed to avoid detection. External cameras showed Xorian vessels approaching. Ling whispered, her breath visible in the chilling air. "They're scanning us extensively." Minutes stretched into an agonizing half-hour as the Thunderchild drifted, seemingly dead in space. The bridge crew remained at their posts, speaking only in whispers when absolutely necessary. Below decks, in a specially shielded compartment, Athena, the ship's adaptive AI, continued its work, analyzing Xorian communication protocols at accelerated speed. Chen received updates through her neural implant, watching as ATGNA made breakthrough after breakthrough, decoding the aliens' encryption and developing countermeasures. The AI had identified not just weaknesses in their shield modulations, but had cracked their entire command authentication system. "Captain," Rahman's voice came through her private channel. "ATGNA has compiled a complete infiltration package for their tactical network. We can insert contradictory orders directly into their command structure." A grim smile touched Chen's lips. "How soon can we implement?" "The moment we power back up. But we'll need to get their boarding parties aboard first. If we strike before they attempt to claim the ship, They'll know it's a trap. Chen's eyes narrowed. So we let them board us? Yes. Athena can monitor their approach through passive sensors. Once they're committed, we strike. On the tactical display, Chen watched as Saurian vessels surrounded the drifting Thunderchild. Several smaller craft detached from the larger ships, boarding vessels, preparing to capture the seemingly helpless human warship. Prepare security teams, Chen ordered through the command channel. Non-lethal measures only. We need to keep the boarding parties contained but not alerted. The first Saurian boarding craft attached to the Thunderchild's outer hull with a metallic clang that reverberated through the darkened corridors. Through ship-wide sensors, Chen watched alien soldiers in environmental suits gathering at the airlock. Cutting tools already working on the emergency sealed doors. All hands, she whispered into the ship-wide communication system, her voice barely audible but reaching every crew member. Prepare for imminent hostile boarding. Remain at emergency stations. When the counterattack begins, you'll know. As the first airlock door gave way with a hiss of escaping air, Chen settled deeper into her command chair. In the darkness of the bridge, illuminated only by the faint glow of emergency lighting, her eyes gleamed with anticipation. Let them come, she murmured. The more they commit, the more devastating our response will be. The first Saurian boarding party moved through the darkened corridors of the Thunderchild with predatory confidence. Their helmet cameras transmitted images back to Admiral Sgalfox, emergency lighting casting crimson shadows, occasional sparks from damaged systems, and no sign of resistance. 6 Saurian soldiers, each standing nearly 7 feet tall and encased in articulated battle armor, swept methodically forward, weapons at the ready. The human vessel is secured, Admiral, the boarding team leader reported. No resistance encountered. Life support systems minimal but functional. We detect numerous life signs in sealed compartments. On his command ship, Admiral Sgalfox's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. Excellent. Proceed to their engineering section and secure their propulsion technology. Second and third boarding teams prepare for deployment. As 3 more boarding craft attached to different points on the Thunderchild's hull, Captain Chen monitored the infiltration through her neural interface. Athena fed her real-time updates on Saurian positions and communications. 16 Saurian soldiers now aboard, Rivera whispered. They're heading for engineering and the bridge. 2 more boarding craft approaching starboard airlocks. Chen's finger hovered over the virtual trigger in her neural interface. Not yet. We need their command codes fully integrated into Athena's infiltration package. Throughout the ship, human crew members remained motionless at their stations, some barely breathing as alien footsteps echoed through nearby corridors. In engineering, Dr. Raman and his team lay in apparent unconsciousness across the deck, while Saurian soldiers examined the quantum core with greedy fascination. Athena. Chen subvocalized through her neural link. Infiltration package complete, Captain. The AI responded directly into her consciousness. Saurian command authentication protocols fully mapped. I can now issue orders that their systems will recognize as legitimate. And their shield frequencies. Analyzed and exploitable. I have identified a cyclic vulnerability every 2.7 seconds in their modulation pattern. Chen permitted herself a small smile in the darkness. Execute primary countermeasures on my mark. She waited until the sensor readout showed 24 Saurian soldiers aboard and 5 boarding craft attached to the Thunderchild's hull. 3, 2, 1. Mark. Throughout the Saurian fleet, communication systems suddenly flooded with contradictory orders. Boarding teams received commands to fire on their own ships. Fleet vessels received orders to target allied craft. Authentication codes all registered as legitimate, creating cascade failures across their command structure. Simultaneously, the Thunderchild surged back to life. Emergency lights switched to full illumination, temporarily blinding the Saurian boarding parties. Internal force fields activated, isolating and containing the alien soldiers in separate sections of the ship. On the bridge, screens and consoles reactivated as power flooded back into all systems. Shields restored to 48%, Rivera announced. Weapons coming online. Target their command and control nodes. Chen ordered as weapons officers input targeting solutions with practiced efficiency. Athena, execute secondary countermeasures. The ship's main weapons array, dormant until now, powered up with a crescendo of energy that made the hull vibrate with potential. Quantum disruption beams lanced out from the Thunderchild's forward array, targeting specific vulnerabilities in the nearest Saurian vessels. The beams struck precisely during the 2.7-second shield vulnerability window that ATCHENA had identified, bypassing defensive systems entirely. 3 Saurian cruisers erupted in silent explosions, their internal systems catastrophically overloaded. Before the rest of the fleet could react, the Thunderchild fired again, each shot timed perfectly to exploit the now predictable weakness in the alien shields. On his command ship, Admiral Scal Fox roared in frustration as his magnificent fleet dissolved into chaos. Ships fired upon each other, unable to distinguish friend from foe as ATCHENA flooded their networks with false targeting data. The Admiral's 6 eyes darted frantically between displays showing mounting losses. Impossible, he snarled, striking the subordinate who dared approach with more bad news. How can one vessel do this? Admiral, a communications officer called out. We've lost control of 37% of the fleet. Authentication systems are compromised. We cannot verify any incoming orders. As the Saurian Armada fell into disarray, the Thunderchild moved with surgical precision through their formation. Each shot from its weapon systems found a vulnerable target. Each maneuver exploited gaps in the once perfect Saurian coordination. Captain, Rise reported with undisguised awe. The Saurian fleet is in complete disarray. Athena's infiltration has caused ships in the outer perimeter to retreat. Others are firing on their own command vessels. Captain Chen allowed herself a moment of satisfaction before focusing on the tactical display once more. Maintain fire on priority targets. Let's press our advantage while we have it. She knew the tide had turned, but also that the battle was far from over. Admiral Scal Fox still commanded hundreds of vessels, and from the increased energy readings emanating from his command ship, he was preparing a desperate response. Admiral Scal Fox's command vessel shuddered as another nearby cruiser exploded, debris peppering their weakening shields. The bridge, once a model of Saurian efficiency, had descended into near chaos. Display screens flickered with contradictory information, communication channels buzzed with panicked reports, and the proud officers of the hegemony's flagship now looked to their admiral with undisguised fear. Scal Fox stared at the tactical display, mandibles clicking in agitation as he watched his magnificent armada disintegrate around him. Nearly a third of his vessels were destroyed or crippled. Another third fired upon their own allies, their systems hopelessly compromised by whatever infiltration the humans had unleashed. How? He hissed, talons digging into the living metal of his command throne. How has one vessel done this? Sub-Commander Vex Moore approached cautiously. Admiral, we must consider tactical withdrawal. The human technology clearly exceeds our intelligence assessments. For a moment, Scal Fox's 6 eyes fixed on her with murderous intent. Then something shifted in his posture. His secondary arms emerged from beneath his ceremonial armor, reaching for a sealed control panel that none of his subordinates had ever seen activated. No, he said, his voice suddenly calm. The hegemony does not retreat. If we cannot have their technology, we will ensure they never use it against us again. His clawed finger hovered over a blood-red interface. All remaining vessels set collision course with the human homeworld. Maximum velocity. A stunned silence fell across the command bridge. Suicide tactics were unprecedented in Saurian military doctrine. Admiral, Vex Moore protested, many of our ships still have functioning drives. We cooled. Execute the order. Scal Fox roared. By Imperial command. Aboard the Thunderchild, The atmosphere had shifted from desperate defense to cautious optimism. The ship moved through the scattered Saurian fleet like a predator, each strike precise and devastating as HFY continued to sow confusion through the alien command network. "We've neutralized approximately 40% of their combat-capable vessels," Rise reported. "Another 30% are in disarray. They're breaking formation, Captain." Chen nodded, allowing herself a moment of satisfaction. "Begin recovery operations for our boarding parties. Prepare tow." "Captain." Lieutenant Ling interrupted, her voice sharp with alarm. "Multiple Saurian vessels are accelerating toward Earth. Energy readings indicate they're overloading their propulsion systems." Chen's blood ran cold as she processed the tactical display. Over 100 Saurian ships had broken away from the main fleet, accelerating to velocities that their structures could barely withstand. "They're going to convert their ships into relativistic weapons," Raman said quietly. "At those speeds, even a small vessel would impact with enough force to cause extinction-level damage." The bridge fell silent as the implications became clear. The Thunderchild could not intercept all of the vessels in time. "Options," Chen demanded. Raman hesitated only briefly. "The Singularity Forge, Captain. It's our only chance." "The weapon is untested at full capacity," Chen reminded him. "Your own simulation showed a 30% chance of containment failure." "That was before we encountered the Saurians," Raman countered. "HFY has refined the calculations based on actual combat data. The risk is now approximately 32%, but it's the only system capable of stopping all those ships simultaneously." Chen made her decision instantly. Divert all power to the Singularity Forge. Target the center mass of the accelerating Saurian fleet. Throughout the ship, lights dimmed as power flowed into the experimental system. Warning signals flashed across engineering consoles as the quantum core reached output levels never before attempted. "Warning," Athena's calm voice announced ship-wide, "weapon system untested at full capacity. Containment failure probability, 32.7%. On the bridge view screen, a small perfect sphere of absolute darkness formed at the focal point of the Thunderchild's forward array. It hovered there momentarily, a pinprick of nothingness against the backdrop of space. "Singularity stable," Raman reported, his voice tight with concentration. "Preparing to release containment field on your order." Chen watched as the Saurian ships continued their suicidal course toward Earth, now less than 30 minutes from achieving velocities that would make them unstoppable. "Release containment field," she ordered. "Full dispersion." The tiny sphere of darkness expanded rapidly, creating a localized distortion in space-time that pulled at the very fabric of reality. The relativistic Saurian fleet, unable to alter course, spiraled inevitably toward the artificial gravity well. One by one, the mighty warships elongated grotesquely as they approached the event horizon. Time dilation effects creating a haunting visual display of ships seemingly frozen in their final moments before disappearing completely into the miniature black hole. Only Admiral Scal Fox's command vessel, furthest from the effect and protected by its most powerful shields, avoided immediate destruction, but barely. Its structure groaned and twisted under gravitational stresses no ship was designed to withstand, systems failing catastrophically as it tumbled away from the dissipating Singularity. The Singularity Forge collapsed upon itself, the artificial black hole dissipating as its containment field reestablished control. Where 100 Saurian warships had been accelerating toward Earth, nothing remained but scattered debris and distorted space slowly returning to normal. On the Thunderchild's bridge, Captain Chen released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. The ship's systems were recovering from the massive power drain, status indicators gradually shifting from critical red to cautionary amber. "Singularity has collapsed safely," Dr. Raman reported, exhaustion evident in his voice. "Quantum core stabilizing. We won't be able to use that weapon again anytime soon." "Let's hope we won't need to," Chen replied, turning to tactical. "Status of the remaining Saurian forces." Ray studied his displays. Most surviving vessels are retreating or disabled. Only the Admiral's command ship remains in our vicinity, and it suffered catastrophic damage. Life support appears functional, but weapons and propulsion are offline. Chen considered her options. The battle was won. Earth was safe. Protocol dictated that she should eliminate the remaining threat, the vessel containing the alien commander who had ordered the destruction of a human outpost and attempted to annihilate Earth. "Captain," Rivera prompted, waiting for the order to finish the Xorian flagship. Chen made her decision. "Lieutenant Ling, open a channel to the Xorian command vessel." The bridge crew exchanged surprised glances, but no one questioned her order. After a moment, the view screen flickered to life, revealing the shattered bridge of Admiral Scal Fox's ship. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across twisted metal and injured crew members. The Admiral himself was secured to his command throne by emergency restraints, one arm clearly broken and several of his eyes damaged or destroyed. "Admiral Scal Fox," Chen began, her voice steady and clear. "This is Captain Ilara Chen of the Thunderchild." The alien commander stared at her through his remaining functional eyes. "Have you contacted me to gloat before delivering the final blow, human?" His translator rendered his voice weak but defiant. "No, Admiral. I've contacted you to show you something." Chen nodded to Ling, who initiated a prepared transmission sequence. The Xorian viewscreen filled with images of Earth, children playing in sunlit parks, ancient temples standing alongside modern architecture, bustling cities and tranquil forests, art museums displaying thousands of years of human creativity, scientists working together in laboratories, people of all ethnicities and backgrounds celebrating together. "This is what you attempted to destroy today," Chen said quietly. "Not just a planet, but a living civilization with billions of individual lives, each one unique and valuable." More images followed. Star charts showing the position of the Xorian homeworlds, tactical analyses of their defensive capabilities, projected flight paths for Earth vessels to reach Xorian territory. "We could destroy you and your entire civilization," Chen continued. "Our stellar cartography has already mapped your homeworlds. Our weapons, as you've witnessed, are capable of overwhelming your defenses." Admiral Scal Fox's mandibles clicked slowly. "Then why do you hesitate? Finish what you started." Chen leaned forward slightly. "Because, Admiral, true strength lies not in destruction, but in choosing when to stay your hand. We're offering something your kind has never extended to others: mercy." Silence stretched between the two vessels. On the Xorian command bridge, subordinates watched their admiral carefully, waiting for his response. "Why?" Scal Fox finally asked, genuine confusion evident in his posture. "We would not have shown you the same consideration." "And that," Chen replied, "is precisely why we must show it to you. This cycle of conquest and destruction must end somewhere. Let it end here today." The Admiral seemed to deflate in his throne, his remaining eyes blinking in an asynchronous pattern that the human crew couldn't interpret. "In 17 conquered systems," he said slowly, "no species has ever defeated a hegemony armada. None has ever possessed the power to destroy us yet chosen restraint." He straightened as much as his injuries allowed. "I wish to understand this concept you call mercy." 3 months later, as the Thunderchild returned to Earth orbit amidst celebrations and relief, diplomatic envoys from the Xorian hegemony arrived, not as conquerors, but as supplicants seeking understanding. The ship that had saved humanity now served as the venue for the first formal peace negotiations between the species. Throughout the galaxy, rumors spread of humans, a species previously unknown and unaccounted for, who possessed technologies beyond understanding, and a concept called mercy that some found more terrifying than any weapon. Captain Chen stood at a viewport in the diplomatic reception room, watching Earth rotate below. Admiral Scal Fox, his injuries healed but scars still visible, approached to stand beside her. "Your people could have claimed dominion over the stars," he observed. "Instead, You offer cooperation and mutual respect." Chen smiled slightly. "Conquest is easy, Admiral. Coexistence is the true challenge worthy of advanced species." In the darkness between stars, other alien civilizations recalculated their expansion plans, now giving the tiny blue planet a wide berth. Humanity's first steps into the galactic community were not what anyone expected, but perhaps exactly what was needed. A demonstration that humans could be the most dangerous species in the galaxy, yet choose a different path. The lone sentinel had stood against the storm, and in doing so, changed the course of galactic history forever.